All right, let's dive deep into the world of electric two-wheelers in India. I know you're eager to uncover the trends, the tech, and what's fueling this massive shift. We've got some great reports to guide us.
Yeah, we've got 3 to be exact.
Okay, so first up,
we have a really in-depth report by NITI Aayog.
on NITI Aayog.
Yeah, India's planning commission. It's pretty dense, gotta be honest, but it's full of projections and insights about how these electric two-wheelers are going to transform India's transportation.
Sounds like I must read. What's next?
Next, we're going to look at a report by Boston Consulting Group. They've done some fascinating research on what's driving consumers towards these electric vehicles.
So like consumer trends, what's motivating people to actually make the switch? Love it.
Exactly. Think stats, real-world case studies, all that good stuff.
Okay, and last but not least.
Last, we've got a report by Deloitte and the Society of Manufacturers of Electric Vehicles.
Okay, so this one's getting into like the manufacturing side of things.
Exactly. It gets into the nitty-gritty of the supply chain in India, all the hurdles they face, all the policy support that's going on.
So the race to build an actual industry, a homegrown industry in India.
That's the one.
Sounds like we've got a lot to unpack.
We do.
Get ready, folks, because we are going to unearth all the forces that are really propelling India's electric two-wheeler revolution.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking everything from government initiatives to evolving consumer preferences.
We might even stumble across a few surprises along the way.
Always love a good surprise. All right, so let's set the stage. I think we should start by talking about just how massive India's two-wheeler market really is.
Yeah, it's absolutely massive. Between 2015 and 2021, 80%, a staggering 80% of all vehicles sold were two-wheelers.
80%. That's incredible. I mean, that really puts it into perspective just how ripe this market is for electrification.
Yeah, and it's not just about like swapping out a gasoline engine for an electric motor.
Right, it's a whole transformation.
It really is. And actually, the NITI Aayog report that we talked about predicts that under certain scenarios, the demand for these electric two-wheelers could actually outpace production.
Wow, so they can't even make them fast enough.
That's right. Imagine trying to keep up with that kind of demand. Talk about logistical challenges.
It's wild to think about it. Okay, so let's zoom in a bit on the consumer side for a moment. Why are Indians choosing to go electric? Is it all about saving money on fuel, or is there something more to it?
It's definitely more nuanced than that. The Boston Consulting Group, they actually identified 3 distinct groups of consumers.
3.
They called them enthusiasts, fence-sitters, and detractors. The enthusiasts, as you can probably guess, they are all in on electric.
Right, they're like the early adopters, ready to embrace this new tech. What about those fence-sitters? What's holding them back?
So the fence-sitters, they're intrigued by the idea, but they still need some convincing. I mean, cost is definitely a factor for them, but the report also highlights concerns about range anxiety.
Range anxiety, yeah. I can see that being a big worry, especially in a country as vast as India.
Yeah, you don't want to run out of charge in the middle of nowhere. And then you've got the detractors.
What about them? Are they totally against electric vehicles?
They tend to be a bit more skeptical. A lot of them cite concerns about the reliability of the technology, the availability of charging, or just a plain preference for good old gasoline engines. But here's an interesting thing. The report actually found a pretty significant shift in these groups over the past 2 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the number of enthusiasts and fence-sitters has actually grown dramatically, while the number of detractors has shrunk.
So it seems like the tide is turning. People are coming around to the idea of electric. But what's really driving that change?
Well, saving money on fuel, yeah, that's definitely a motivator. But that's not all.
What else is there?
The Boston Consulting Group found that a lot of Indians, they're actually drawn to the silent ride of electric two-wheelers.
Oh, that makes sense.
In a country with such bustling cities, noisy traffic everywhere.
A peaceful commute. Can't beat that.
That peace and quiet is a big selling point.
For sure. But let's not forget about the government's role in all of this. They've been actively promoting the adoption of electric vehicles, haven't they?
Oh, absolutely. The Indian government isn't just encouraging people to go electric, they're also really pushing for domestic manufacturing.
So they're not just focused on the consumer side.
That's right. One of their key initiatives is the FAME2 scheme. That stands for Faster Adoption and Manufacturing of Electric Vehicles.
Catchy name.
It is, and it's a 2-pronged approach. It's about boosting demand and also nurturing a homegrown industry.
So they're trying to build up the whole ecosystem.
Exactly. And the FAME2 scheme actually offers a pretty hefty financial incentive, 20,000 rupees per electric two-wheeler.
That's a pretty big deal.
It is. And as of late 2021, this scheme has already helped put over 150,000 electric two-wheelers on the road and funded the development of over 2,600 charging stations.
Wow, so they're really putting their money where their mouth is.
They are. But it makes you wonder, are those incentives enough? I mean, building a whole new industry from scratch, that's not easy.
It's a huge undertaking. What about the supply chain? I know we were going to talk about that.
Yeah, that's where the Deloitte report comes in. It highlights that back in 2019, India had to rely heavily on imports for a lot of those electric vehicle components.
So they weren't really making much of it themselves.
Not really, and that led to longer lead times and some quality control issues, which is never good.
Yeah, that's a nightmare, especially for consumers. Have things improved since then?
They have, thankfully. The report points to the emergence of some local suppliers who have stepped up to the plate, especially for what they call Generation 1 components, basically the simpler parts. But those more complex Generation 2 components, those require a whole other level of expertise and investment.
And it makes you wonder if those government incentives are enough to really attract the kind of investment that's needed to make India a global leader in this whole electric two-wheeler manufacturing space.
That's the question. And it gets even more interesting when you think about the advancements in technology that are driving this industry. Because the shift to Generation 2 components, it's not just about complexity, it's about performance and efficiency.
So how does that impact the consumer? What difference does it make to the actual riding experience?
Think of it this way. Generation 2 components, they're all about pushing the boundaries. We're talking battery technology, motor efficiency, and even things like smart features and connectivity.
So longer ranges, faster charging times.
Absolutely, all that. And it leads to a more seamless and enjoyable ride overall.
Sounds like a win-win situation for everyone.
Yeah, I think so. But like we said, building a whole new industry, it's never a walk in the park.
Definitely not. And this is where the government's role becomes even more crucial. We're not just talking financial incentives here. We're talking policies that support research and development, skill development, even infrastructure creation. These are all essential for India to really become a powerhouse in this market.
You hit the nail on the head. It's not just about throwing money at the problem.
Right. It's about creating a whole ecosystem.
That's it. A whole ecosystem that can foster innovation and sustainable growth. So what do you think, what kind of government support is crucial for India to really succeed in this electric two-wheeler revolution?
Well, for starters, I think consistent policies and regulations are key.
Yeah, consistency is huge.
This industry needs a predictable and stable environment if it's going to attract investment and make long-term plans.
Makes sense. But beyond policies, what other factors are critical for success?
I think collaboration is key. We need to see really strong partnerships between the government, industry players, research institutions, and even the consumers themselves.
It's a team effort.
Absolutely. This is a massive undertaking, and it's going to take a collective effort to overcome all the challenges and really realize the full potential of this whole electric revolution. It's like a giant puzzle.
And everyone has a piece. Everyone has a piece. But it's not just about putting the pieces together. It's about creating a picture that actually benefits everyone.
So we've got a booming market, eager consumers, supportive government policies, a rapidly evolving supply chain. It seems like India's electric two-wheeler industry is really on the fast track to success. But what about the infrastructure? I mean, we've got all these electric two-wheelers hitting the streets. Where do you plug them in?
That's a million-dollar question, and that's exactly what we're going to dive into next.
That's the question on everyone's mind, right? Where do you charge these things?
It's a good question. Right now, most EV owners in India are charging at home.
Just at home.
Yeah, pretty much just using standard outlets.
So it's kind of a make-do situation.
Exactly. Public charging infrastructure is still developing, and that's definitely a hurdle.
Yeah, there was a big point in that NITI Aayog report, right?
Absolutely. They found this interesting thing. They found that while 63% of the consumers they surveyed said they preferred public charging.
So most people want public charging.
Yeah, they want it, but the reality is most of them are charging at home.
Because it's easier.
Yeah, because of the cost and convenience. Imagine trying to find a charging station in a crowded Indian city. Not exactly a walk in the park.
Makes you appreciate the simplicity of just plugging it in at home. But the government's working on expanding the public charging options, aren't they?
They are, but it's tricky. It's a complex undertaking. Policies are in place to support installing charging stations, and there are efforts to standardize charging technology, which is really important.
Yeah, standardization is key. You don't want people having to hunt down specific chargers for their specific scooter.
Exactly. But even with government support, there have been some challenges. CESL, the government-backed company, actually ran into some roadblocks with their initial charging station pilots.
Roadblocks like what? What kind of problems did they run into?
Think logistics. You need land that's available in these densely populated areas, reliable electricity supply.
And you need people to actually use the stations.
Of course, you need the demand. So it's a bit of a chicken and egg problem. Consumers won't really use public charging until it's convenient and reliable. But companies might not want to invest in the infrastructure without guaranteed demand.
So what's the solution?
Well, there is another potential solution that we haven't talked about yet, and that's battery swapping.
Oh, yeah. Battery swapping. The Deloitte report mentioned that. Said it could be a game changer for India.
It really could. So with battery swapping, instead of waiting for your battery to charge, you just swap it out for a fully charged one. It's like a pit stop at the electric racetrack.
That sounds incredibly convenient, especially for people who, rely on their two-wheeler to get to work. They can't afford to sit around for hours while their battery is charging. Are there hurdles, though, to making battery swapping a reality in India?
Oh, there are definitely hurdles. Standardization is a big one. You need batteries that are compatible and swapping stations that work across all these different manufacturers.
So you need the whole industry to cooperate.
Basically. Which is a tall order, especially in a market as diverse as India's.
It is. But the potential benefits, are they really that big?
Oh, they're huge. Battery swapping could address that whole range anxiety issue we talked about. Reduce the upfront cost of electric two-wheelers.
Because you're not buying the battery?
Exactly. You could separate the battery from the vehicle. It could even create all these new business models around battery leasing and management.
I remember in your initial request, you mentioned you were really interested in the environmental impact of this whole transition to electric. Does battery swapping have any advantages there?
It does, because swapping makes it easier to manage the whole battery life cycle and ensure that those batteries are properly recycled, which is so important if we're trying to minimize the environmental impact of battery production.
So it's not just about convenience and cost. It's also about creating a more sustainable system.
Exactly. And that's something we see throughout this whole electric two-wheeler landscape in India. It's not just about replacing gasoline with electricity. It's about a fundamental shift in how we think about transportation, its impact on society, its impact on the environment.
It's like a transformation, not just a transition.
Well said. And like any transformation, it has its challenges and its opportunities. Speaking of challenges, are there any potential downsides to this rapid electrification that we haven't talked about yet?
Well, one concern I've heard is about the impact on jobs.
Oh, absolutely.
Specifically jobs in the traditional automotive industry. If electric two-wheelers start to dominate the market, what happens to the people who work in the factories that make the petrol engines? Or the people who repair them?
It's a valid concern. As electric two-wheelers gain market share, it's likely that some of those jobs will be displaced.
But wouldn't you say that the growth of this electric two-wheeler industry is going to create new jobs?
Yeah.
Like in battery manufacturing, charging infrastructure, software development, all of that.
Oh, absolutely it will. It's not about jobs being lost. It's about jobs shifting.
So it's about making sure those workers in the traditional industry have the skills and the opportunities to adapt to this new landscape.
Exactly. Reskilling, upskilling the workforce, it's crucial. Another concern that's worth mentioning is the environmental impact of battery production and disposal. Mining the materials for these batteries, it can have a significant environmental impact. And if it's not managed properly, battery waste can be a real problem.
So it's not enough to just switch to electric. We need to make sure that the whole life cycle of these electric two-wheelers from production to disposal is sustainable.
That's exactly right. And that's where things like responsible sourcing, recycling, closed-loop manufacturing, all of that comes into play. The government and the industry players, they really need to work together to minimize the environmental impact of battery production and make sure those batteries are recycled safely and responsibly at the end of their life.
It seems like India's electric two-wheeler journey is this really complex mix of, technological advancements, economic considerations, and environmental responsibility.
It really is. And what makes it even more fascinating is the cultural impact of this transformation. Electric two-wheelers, they really align with India's aspirations to be technologically advanced, to be environmentally conscious, to be less reliant on imported oil. There's a sense of national pride associated with this transition.
Like India is writing its own story about progress and sustainability.
Exactly. And let's not forget about the coolness factor. These electric two-wheelers, especially the ones with those sleek designs and all the smart features, They're becoming aspirational products, especially among the younger generation.
It's like they've become a symbol of forward-thinking, tech-savvy India.
They represent a shift in mindset, a willingness to embrace innovation and change. But as with any major societal shift, there are bound to be some bumps along the way.
What do you see as the biggest hurdles? I mean, the things that are really standing in the way of widespread electric two-wheeler adoption in India.
Affordability is still a big one. While prices are coming down, electric two-wheelers still have a higher upfront cost than their petrol counterparts. And that's where those government incentives that we talked about earlier, those are absolutely crucial.
So bridging that gap, making it more affordable for people.
Exactly. And then there are those concerns about battery range and charging time. Those are still sticking points for a lot of people.
Yeah, range anxiety is a real thing. It's understandable. People want to know that they can rely on their vehicle to get them where they need to go.
Exactly. And that's where advancements in battery technology, particularly the development of more energy-dense batteries, are going to be key.
So we're talking longer ranges.
Longer ranges, faster charging times as that fast charging technology evolves. And then, of course, there's battery swapping, which has the potential to eliminate charging time altogether.
It's interesting how those technological advancements are so closely tied to consumer behavior. It's like as the technology gets better, it addresses those consumer concerns, which then drives further adoption and more innovation.
It's a virtuous cycle for sure. But technology is only part of the equation. We also need to address consumer awareness and education. There are people out there who might be hesitant to switch to electric simply because they don't really understand the technology or the benefits.
It's like anything new, there's a learning curve. How do we overcome that?
I think a lot of it comes down to communication, targeted marketing campaigns, educational initiatives, even showcasing. All of that can help to raise awareness and kind of demystify the technology. Remember the Boston Consulting Group report? They emphasize the importance of understanding those different consumer segments that we talked about.
The enthusiasts, the fence sitters, the detractors.
Exactly. You need to tailor your message to each group's specific needs and concerns.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Nope. You need to speak to the enthusiasts' desire for the latest and greatest. You need to reassure the fence sitters about the range and the reliability. And you need to address those detractors' skepticism head on. And that's where strong branding and a positive customer experience come in. Building trust and creating a really seamless and enjoyable ownership experience, that's key to winning people over.
It's like creating a movement, a community of people who believe in this idea of electric mobility.
Well said. And that's what makes India's electric two-wheeler journey so compelling. It's not just about the technology, it's about this societal shift, this collective embrace of a cleaner and more sustainable future.
It's a story that's still unfolding. And the next chapter, well, that's all about the future. It's really amazing to see how far India has come on this journey to electrify its two-wheeler market.
It is. We've covered a lot in this deep dive, from consumer trends to government initiatives, the supply chain, charging infrastructure. It's clear that this is a dynamic and ever-evolving landscape.
And it's far from over. What trends and innovations should we keep an eye on in the future of electric two-wheelers?
One area that's really exciting is battery technology. We talked about range anxiety and charging time being major concerns for consumers.
Right, and how those concerns are driving some incredible advancements in battery tech.
Exactly. We're seeing groundbreaking developments like solid-state batteries. They have the potential to offer much higher energy density, faster charging times, and even better safety than the lithium-ion batteries that are commonly used today.
Solid-state batteries sound futuristic.
They do, but they're becoming a reality, and they could be a real game changer for electric vehicles across the board.
Okay, so longer ranges, faster charging, what's not to love?
Right. And there's more. Researchers are also looking at alternative battery chemistries like sodium-ion batteries. These could potentially lower costs and reduce our reliance on those scarce materials like lithium.
You know, in your initial request, you mentioned that you were particularly interested in the environmental impact of battery production. Do these alternative chemistries offer any advantages there?
They do. Sodium-ion batteries, for instance, they rely on materials that are much more abundant and easier to obtain that can significantly reduce the environmental footprint of battery manufacturing.
So it's about sustainability as much as it's about performance.
Absolutely. That's why the idea of a circular economy for batteries is gaining so much traction. It's about minimizing the impact of mining those materials, making sure that the batteries are disposed of responsibly, and maximizing the recovery of those valuable materials through recycling.
So it's like closing the loop. creating a system where those batteries are seen as resources to be reused and repurposed, not just thrown away when they're done.
Exactly. And that requires collaboration across the entire value chain, from the battery manufacturers to the vehicle manufacturers, the consumers, the recycling facilities. Everyone needs to work together.
Just like with this whole electric two-wheeler revolution itself.
Exactly. So beyond the batteries, are there any other technological innovations that could shape the future of this industry?
I'm sure there are.
Definitely. Think about artificial intelligence and machine learning. We're already seeing this in things like battery management systems and predictive maintenance.
So smarter scooters.
Yeah.
Ones that can optimize their own performance.
Yeah, and even anticipate potential problems. And that's just scratching the surface. As these technologies continue to evolve, we could see even more sophisticated features like personalized riding profiles, advanced safety systems, even self-driving capabilities.
Self-driving scooters. Now, that's something I'd love to see. So we've been focusing on India, but this electric two-wheeler revolution is happening all over the world. What role can India play on the global stage?
I think India has the potential to be a true global leader in electric two-wheeler manufacturing and innovation. They've got this massive domestic market, government policies that are really supportive, and a growing pool of engineering talent. All the ingredients are there for India to really drive this industry forward.
It sounds like they're in a great position to take advantage of this global shift to electric mobility.
They are. And the lessons they learn along the way, the challenges they overcome, the solutions they develop, those could serve as a model for other countries that are also trying to electrify their own transportation systems.
It's a good reminder that we're all in this together, facing those shared challenges and opportunities in this rapidly changing world. As we wrap up our deep dive into electric two-wheelers in India, what stands out to you the most?
What's really fascinating to me is how this is about so much more than just swapping out an engine. It's about reimagining the future of transportation. It's about how we can leverage technology to create a more sustainable and enjoyable way to get around.
It's been an incredible journey exploring this topic with you. What insights will you take away from our conversation?
We'd love to hear your thoughts on the future of electric two-wheelers. Share your insights and reflections with us on our social media channels.
Thanks for joining us for this electrifying deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring.